Welcome back to Gary's Practical Workshop. Well, what are we doing today? Well, today's a bit of an odd day. I've had some problems with the Ducato van, the works van, and it led me down a garden path. A long time ago, I had problems with the starter motor. Now, a lot of you guys may have done this. If you haven't, I hope this can be helpful for someone, but this is what I've discovered. The way that starter motor is mounted on the gearbox, it looks as if it can catch the water, because the gutter on the bottom of the windscreen is rubbish. It just doesn't seem to drain and keep the water out of the engine. And as we know, with many of the vans, the water gets between the camshafts, which is the cover over the top of the engine, and it just sits there in a puddle, which is really not good for the injectors. So what I decided to do many years ago was I made a lithium sheet, an aluminium sheet, to go round that, to extend or attached to the plastic cover that's already there. And that's all very well. It stops the water getting into the top of the cylinder head where the injectors are, but the trouble is it runs down the back, and when it runs down the back, yeah, you guessed it, it goes over the starter motor. Over a period of time, the starter motor pocket, which is this bit, this is the old one, that starter motor pocket, because it sits on the engine like that, the gearbox being here, so consequently this fills up with water. It gets into the motor through the shaft at the bottom, and before you know it, it jams up, which you can't blame it really, because if it's going to fill up with water, it's not going to do the starter motor any good at all. Now, I tried greasing it up, I've tried doing all sorts of things. I've got through about 3 or 4 different starter motors over the last 3 or 4 years, because they keep clogging up. So this time what I've decided to do, if you look carefully on there, I don't know if you can see this, so I don't catch my glasses or the mic. If you look carefully, I've drilled some little teeny weeny holes. Now some people may say, what the hell are you doing? You know, that's going to let all the dirt and crap in. It may well do, but if it does get water in there now, it's going to drain out. And those holes are at the lowest point on that boss, this actual whole boss here. So hopefully the water will drain out. I'm not saying you should do this, it's your shout, it's up to you what you want to do. This is what I'm trying. This is the old starter motor. We've tried this on the bench, it works, the Bendix gear kicks out, everything about this motor is fine. I can't see anything wrong with it. However, today, because it's the old one, it's not that old, still got the label on it. This was supplied by the two guys that run Coastal Motorhomes, Nick and Martin. Fair play, guys. It's not the starter motor, it's the design of the van. So what came about this time round? Well, the other day we had some cold weather, and I mean it was really cold, and the trouble is I'm pretty sure it was the battery, but I didn't know that at the time because I'd had so many problems with the starter motor. Click, 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 it's just the solenoid going. So I thought, bloody hell, the starter motor's giving me problems again. Now, instead of checking the battery, as in charging it up, I just took a voltage reading. The voltage was there. It was, I think it was 12.7, 12.8, which should be enough to turn it over. Clearly it wasn't, but I didn't know that at the time. So anyway, I talked to Nick at Coastal Motorhomes. We had a long chat, and we both come to the conclusion, or more or less, that it's very rare you're going to get several starter motors that are bad in a row. I mean, it's pretty 1 to 1,000,000. So the fact they were both on the bench and they were tested, connected up to the battery when it was in the vise, and everything worked on the old starter motor and the new starter motor, we looked at it. And we looked at it a bit closer, and my buddy came along with his truck, and we jump lead from his truck to the battery. And we left it revving, I'll do that again, revving on his truck to punch some power straight into my battery on the van. And that, we felt, was the way you would normally do it. I couldn't see a problem with that. Turn the key, even with his van connected and pumping power in it, click, click, click. So I thought, what is going on here? The starter motors work on the bench, but they don't work in the truck. Sorry, in my van. His truck, my van. And we're both scratching our heads thinking, what is going on? Anyway, I decided to investigate this a bit further. So what I decided to do was whip that starter motor off. So now I've got 2 starter motors on the bench. We checked them once more, couldn't find anything wrong with them. Put the new one back on, and I thought, I know, I'll change this battery. I'll take this battery out and I'll change it. So I changed the battery, and the battery that went in there was charged right up. Put it on there, click, click, click. Still the solenoid clicking. It's got to be the wiring, it's got to be the fuse, it's got to be something between the battery live positive and the feed, the end of that heavy duty cable, which is now bolted onto the starter motor lug. I'm thinking, this is just weird. So what I decided to do was to bridge it. So I took a jump lead, put it onto the positive of the battery, underneath the vehicle, up underneath the front, and then I clipped it on the lug that goes onto the starter motor heavy duty connection. Turn the key, brum 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 brum, it works. So I'm thinking, it's got to be a wiring problem here. I hope I haven't got to put a new heavy duty cable in from the battery all the way down underneath the vehicle, around the back of the engine, blah blah blah, to the starter motor lug. And I just couldn't get a head around that. I thought, is it a bad connection? This went on for a couple of days. I'm thinking about it, mulling it over in my head, trying to come up with some ideas. Is it the battery? Is it the starter motor? We checked the starter motors on the bench. Why won't it work on the van? Well, it is a different environment when it's on the van. It's not the same as being on the bench. We proved they work on the bench, but when you put them back in the van, you don't know what problems you could get. So I'm thinking, is it fuses? I checked all the fuses. I changed the batteries twice. I put both batteries on charge. I've done as much as I could think. I couldn't rack my brains anymore. The last battery which we put in there, I brought it in and I bought a new charger for it, and it's this one. And I tell you guys, this is a damn good charger. It's smart. It looks at the battery and it says the battery is so much capacity, the battery is so much voltage, I'll trickle charge it, or I'll bang more volts in until it gets to a level, and then I'll back off. Good piece of kit, made by Ring. And I took the battery out, left it overnight, and I run a diagnostic test with the charger, and the charger said to me that it got up to 90%. I thought, well, that should be enough. Ideally it'd be good to have it to 100%. So I thought, we'll leave it overnight a bit longer, and overnight, came out in the morning, 100%. I thought, great. Then I checked the voltage with a multimeter. Now bear in mind, that's just the volts, it's not the amps. So I'm thinking, well, if it's 100%, is it 100% on volts or amps? Not quite sure. But then I noticed on this charger there's a capacity check, and I thought, brilliant. I checked the capacity, amps, 100%. You're not going to get any better than that. The battery is 100% on volts and amps, so it should have the punch of the volts, the muscle, and it should have the current to kick that over. Put the battery back in, wire it all up, turn the key, click 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 click. On the solenoid, what is going on? That bamboozled me. It completely bamboozled me. Everything is okay. The starter motor is okay. The battery is 100%. The amps on the battery is 100%. What's going on? I checked the fuses once more. This time I took the fuses off. This is the Cal 5 fuses, which link those heavy duty cables onto the battery. Couldn't get any joy. Their fuses were fine. Couldn't get any results about failure. No joy at all. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll bridge it. And I took a jump lead and I went back to what I originally tried, but knowing that the starter motor was good, knowing that the battery was good, all charged up, all amped up, as you might say, if that's the right terminology. And I took that jump lead, clipped it on the live terminal of the battery, again put it underneath the vehicle, clamped it onto the lug of the starter motor heavy duty lead, and it's bolted onto the starter motor, and turn the key, brum brum brum, it goes. I thought, that's odd. It's got to be a connection problem. So now I found a very helpful auto electrician, and it's incredible. A little bit of knowledge goes such a long way. He said, have you cleaned off all the terminals, the negative earth? I said, yeah, I've done the earth strap. Now if you go back in the videos, you'll see there was an earth strap problem with Billy, the motorhome. I cleaned all the earth strap. That was one of the first things I'd done. I brushed everything off. Then I thought, there's one thing I haven't cleaned, and that's the lug, the connector lug that goes onto the starter motor. So I've got underneath the van, went through it, brushed it all off, cleaned it, wire brushed it all off, cleaned it, cleaned off the nut that was on there, cleaned everything off with my old drill and a rotating wire brush, all clean and sparkling. Put it all back together, turn the key, and guess what? Brum brum brum, it works. And it's been running now like that for the last 2 or 3 days. Turn the key, brum brum brum, it starts. My sound effects are pretty good, aren't they? Brum brum brum. I'm happy. It works now. I think I've sussed it. I think it was a bad connection on the lug which goes onto the starter motor underneath the vehicle. And to be fair, this is quite open to the elements. So yeah, maybe a lot of crap and rust started up there, surface rust, I don't know. But now it's cleaned, it works. So that's the story. So what am I doing today? Why am I blabbering on here? Well, I'm going to show you the starter motor, and we're going to strip this starter motor and have a look inside. Yeah, let's see how we get on. Well, I've wasted 12 minutes waffling on about it, so let's get cracking into this. What I've done here, this has got the old cover on it. You don't get a new cover with these. So what I'm going to do is take this off. Let's move that. Take this off. Need to get in there with a long socket. It's only done up finger tight. Putting this on when it's underneath can be a bit of a pain because you haven't got a lot of room to move in. I'm going to put them back on because I don't want to lose them. This nut, just in case you're thinking about this, this rusty nut is not going to be used. If it does get used, it will be wire brushed up. So we've unconnected this feed that goes from the output into the actual motor. So now I've marked this. I've scratched it there. I don't know if the camera will pick that up. I've scratched that. I've scratched this onto that bolt so that I know that it will go back the same way. Oh, by the way, you're gonna have to excuse that noise. I might mention it. The noise of Billy. It's about time I run his engine just to get some oil round. Notice I'm undoing with that, not doing up. I need to make some space here for bits and bobs. So there's our motor. And this is our Sun and Planet gears, which all fit together in there. Now, to be fair, it doesn't look as if there's much water got into that. This is what, I don't know if you guys can see that. We've got a helical gear here which throws out a lever. Well, the solenoid comes back, and if you can see that in there, it throws that forward, which throws out the Bendix gear, which engages on the gear on the flywheel. Let's just take that. Put that back in. You can see the 3 gears there, the Planet gears inside there. Then if I can get that on camera, that gives it more torque. It means you can use a somewhat lower power motor and still get the same output at the Bendix gear, which is a clever idea really. So we can put that to one side. Let's move that to one side. That doesn't look too bad. Let's have a look at the motor and the brushes. So that's the gearing. Well, that's not gonna... Oh, there is water there. Look at that. There's water been getting in there. So that does need cleaning out. Well, let's see what we got. This is obviously the end of the brushes. So I need a small screwdriver to get in there. There's an E-clip on there which I need to pop off, and then that will release that end where the brushes are held. Well, it's not an E-clip, it's just held on there by the fact that it's cupped. We'll put them over there. It's just a support with a phosphorus bronze or brass bush bearing in there. That can go over there. That will turn that upside down. And all this now will just pop off. You've got to be a bit careful because the brushes will ping out. You see the brushes in there? That's okay, we can deal with that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put my fingers in there, pull up, and over there's the brushes. And I got a bit of a sneaker, I shouldn't really touch them with greasy hands. And push this one down, and out pops the armature. And that's it. There's not a lot to them really. Because water's got into it though, what I am going to do is see if I can tidy all that up, because that's not good. Tidy all that up, clean it all out. The top part looks pretty good, but left, if this was left, you can see where it's going to go. It's going to get onto the magnets. Can you see that? Yeah, there you go. It's going to get onto the magnets, and before you know it, they're going to be all rusty, and it's going to be rubbing against the shaft, the windings, and that's not good at all. Let's clean it all out. Right, I'm going to clean all this up and I'll be back later, folks. We've cleaned all this up. You can see that's quite clean in there now. There is some marks where the rust is. If you can see the rust marks, but that's not too bad. The most important thing is getting all the bits of grit and stuff out, because if that gets between the magnets and the rotor, the stator and the rotor, then obviously it's going to wear it and mess it right up. Which draws my attention to this area now. Let's put those brushes over there, put that there. It turns out, if we take this out the vise, and I'll show you what I mean, guys. Because the starter motor is in roughly that position, see that? Yeah, roughly that position. I think water's been getting in the top here, or it's been getting in underneath, around here. There is what looks to be a rubber bung there, I don't think that's very good. And that's obviously to cover the arm. You can't, I don't know if you can see the arm in there. There's a little arm like a fork. It looks like a selector fork, but that's what throws the Bendix out, because it pivots inside here, round about here. And this is the electromagnet. When a charge goes through from the ignition key, puts a 12 volt in there, and then throws it forward at the same time, letting the power come through and switching it from an open circuit to a closed circuit, or shall I say a closed circuit to an open circuit, to fire up the motor, which obviously spins all this, and then the engine starts. But looking at this now, I'm looking at this from a point of view of the leaky area. Well, I've cleaned all this off, but this was the leaky area, and this will only go on. Let me just see if I can get that back in the vice to where I had it. Yeah, that'll do, just to stabilise it. This will only go on one way, and I think the reason that is because of this grommet. Oh no, it goes on there. Yeah, it goes on that way as well. Yeah, that's the way. And it's pushing on that rubber grommet. And that's all very well, but then if the water's going to get in, it's also going to get into the gears. And we can see traces of water in the grease, where the grease is brown. Just here. It's all brown around there, which is a little bit worrying. So I'm going to re-grease all this and see how we go. So I'll be back in a minute when I've finished all this re-greasing. I'll show you when I've done it. I've got it spinning in the lathe, and it's very, very, very slow, extremely slow. And I just want to get a wire brush, maybe a bit of emery cloth, clean emery cloth, or better still, Aberonette cloth. This is good stuff. We'll just clean it up. We'll see a nice copper finish. That's better. Nice clean bit of rag. Notice I've stopped the lathe and I'm putting the rag in there. That's a lot cleaner. I think we can take that out now. Just turn the lathe off and then whip him out. Mustn't forget that spacer on there. Put the chuck key back. Right, let's go over to the bench. So that looks a lot better, doesn't it? Nice and clean. Good copper finish. Now if it was really old, you'd go down these little slots and clean out the gunk. And I've got a pick in here somewhere, so even though it's not old, I'm going to do it anyway. Belt and braces. I'm just going to quickly clean those. Question is which one do you start from? Let's mark it. So I don't know if you guys can see, but what I'm doing is start on that one, clean, clean, clean. There's nothing in them, to be honest with you. But they're all, it's just nice to know that if any of them got any junk in there, it's just nice to know that we are getting it out. I'll blow it off after with the airline. Now, some guys would say it's quite repetitive, but to be honest, yeah, I find it quite therapeutic. We've been round to the marker. I'm going to blow this off. So now that's more or less ready to go back in. But let's put that into the gearbox and just see what it looks like. Take that out. So that would be like that, and that would mesh in with those 3 planet gears. Like that. And if you can see, as you turn that round, it turns the planet gears, which in turn turns another drum on the other side, which turns this here, turns the gear, the Bendix gear. I don't know if you can see that working. There you go, look. Which, as I said earlier, gives it more torque. For every 1 revolution the armature is doing, it's probably only doing half a revolution or quarter revolution on the output shaft. Let's have a look. Let's try it. That's there. 1, 2. Yeah, for every 2 revolutions here, I think it's doing 1 revolution on the Bendix gear. So you can see it's got the power by doing that. Right, that's that. So let's take that out, put him somewhere safe there, and go back to the gearbox. Grease all that up. It's going to be a bit of a pig to get the grease in there, but we'll have a go. Although it might be an idea to take that apart, and that can be done by undoing this end, and that's torque screws. So let's see what I got in that area. I'm taking these 2 out, just got this one more to do. I'll be careful here because we don't want springs and things going ping across the garage. Well, there's the solenoid and the spring. If we look on this side, that's the plunger, which has the effect, as I said earlier, something's just fallen out, a gear. So not too bad. We can soon clean it off and put it back. Might be an idea to clean that off a little bit more. I'll do that in a minute. But here we can see what happens here. There's the plunger. So when that becomes energized with power, 12 volt, the spring keeps it away from the flywheel, but the electromagnet is more powerful than the spring, and so consequently it pulls that back. And as it pulls it back, you can see it engages the Bendix gear. Bear in mind that is spinning at the time when it does it. So that's that. So let's just see what we can do here. Oh, that comes off. That's nice. That's nice. So that comes off like that. So this may all come out. There's the rubber grommet. Let's tidy up a little bit. And there it all is. That's the housing. Put the housing there. You can see it now in its entirety. Quite a simple system. That there I think is a kinetic clutch, so that if you keep the key on in the vehicle, once the starter motor is spinning, it won't damage the starter motor. The kinetic clutch lets it freewheel. But this is in not very good shape. It's very dirty. All these gears are falling out, so we just will take them out. So I need to clean this up. And if I do too much pulling on that, it might snap that arm. The old one that came off was a lot worse than this one. This was going back a couple of years, because the new one's on there now. We'll re-grease all this. You can see the rust where the water's got even on to the shaft. I don't know if you can see that, guys, but yeah, rust there. I sprayed that with WD. Let's give it a bit more. We'll try and get all that out if we can. I'm going to spray it, we'll blow it now. Right, look at the muck in there. I think a petrol bath might be an idea there, or some sort of bath. Right, I'm going to clean this up and I'll be back when I've done that and we'll continue. Right guys, I've cleaned all this up. See if this meets to your level of cleanliness. Right, we've cleaned up all this side in here. There's always going to be something residue in there where the gear is, the appendix gear, because it's coming down through the shaft. We've greased up the helical splines there, which is the system. As it moves like that, it engages. I've yet to do the gearbox there. I'm just going to pack that full, but first of all I want to put this back together inside the housing. That's also been cleaned up from compared to what it was. I've greased up that needle roller which supports the end of the shaft, and we've got to get that back in there now. So let's see how we go. I'm sorry if you can't see very well on the camera. This is the plunger which we talked about earlier. Just give them a little bit of a clean. And that hooks underneath. If we can get it underneath there. We'll have to put that on before we put it all in there as a unit. Yeah, there you go. So there's the plunger. That's where we were earlier. Remember? The reason that's turning is because of the helical splines on the shaft. So that goes there. And then we put the solenoid back in the right way round, which goes in there, and it is there, but we've got to put that rubber grommet on first. This little chap, and that's got to go underneath like that. See that in there. Now it might be a good idea to put that on with a load of grease to try and seal it. We got to turn that round to allow for that grommet to seat down, which is there. So we put a bit more grease around the edge of that. With a bit of luck, it may seal it, or help to seal it. It's around here I'm putting the grease. Okay, we can put that down. So now, that's a bit mucky. Don't get anything inside there. We mustn't leave that spring out. And to clean all that out, make sure it's nice and tidy. Then put that spring back. The spring goes on there, and then that seats in there and bolts on. Let's get one bolt in there. And holds it in. And then get the other bolts in. Tighten it up. I don't know what the torque setting is for that, so I'm just using my field really to snug it up. Should be enough. Right, I've cleaned this off the best I can. It has been marked. You can see the brown there, here, where the rust has started to form. Right, okay. So all I've got to do now is to grease up the gears, the planet gears. So let's stick them in the hole and see how we go on that one. Natural fact, I'll grease them before I put it all together. Can you see, guys? Yeah, hopefully. Good wedge of grease in here. I'll grease each one. I think it's got yeah, it's got needle rollers inside it, so you want to get some grease into them. Put it all together and put an extra blob in the middle. Use me grease wrap to clean off. Now the tricky bit is to put the brushes over the commutator. Let's see how we go. Now one of the problems that is a real tricky thing to deal with is these brushes. If I pull that off the commutator, then they all come popping out, and it's a real pig to get them back into their little houses. You might be able to just see them. Can you see the houses there? Here. There's the carbon brush right there. Pushes on the commutator, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I found a way of doing that which is quite sneaky, and here it is. What I do to take this off in one go, once you've got it off, you can play around with the brushes, but you also have a problem getting it back on the socket, so bear that in mind. We put the socket over there and keep it steady, and then pull this off. The brushes will slide onto the socket. Can you see that? A lot easier than going ping all over the place with the spring. And we can put it back on the same way. The only downside, of course, with this is you can't really clean the brushes. You could, if you're very careful, pull the socket down a little bit and maybe clean it a little bit like that, but it's not really good. You'd have to take the brushes out. Now these brushes, this motor is quite new, so I'm not going to take them right out. I've cleaned the commutator. The carbon, you shouldn't really touch the carbon with greasy fingers anyway, but we can just clean them off with a little bit of rag if you really want to, just here. But of course you're not really getting the whole length of the depth, length, whatever you want to call it, of the brush. But that should be okay. Now to put it back on, of course, we'll push the socket back up. Can you guys see that? Push the socket back up and then line it up with the commutator, and then hopefully jiggle that, he says. There he goes. Bit tricky, but it can be done. And then it goes onto the commutator. And that's ready to go into the sleeve, but be careful again, as you put it in, it will snatch. So what I tend to do is put something like that underneath it, just slightly smaller than the diameter, and then lure it in. And bear in mind, you need to line up this bit, this hole, with that rubber grommet there, but it will snatch. Bear in mind. There he goes, but it's gone in. That should, with a bit of luck, slot in. Now it's not pushing on the spring, so we know that's home, which is good. Where's the plate? That plate, that needs cleaning. Should have this back together in a jiffy. Now we know where we are. Put a bit of grease in there. That lines up on the grommet. Then these two spaces go on. I hope you guys can see this, because it's getting kind of dark now. Can't see what's going on there. That's annoying. Ah. Got it. Covered in sawdust. They should bolt all the way down there. I'll only take them down so far. That's enough. I'll go overboard them. Now we'll put the cap on. Load of grease in there. The light's going, in fact it's gone. So a lot of this I might have to redo. All good fun. Hope it helps someone else out with a starter motor, because at the end of the day, this sure has given me the runaround. And that should be it. Let's check that Bendix gear. Yeah, that's coming out as it should do. So if we put that in there, we screw that one on, which is the contact. You guys are probably not going to be able to see a lot of this, are you? I don't know if this is on the right way yet. I'm not too worried, it's just to check it. That's quite tight. So let's check and see what we got. So the earth is going to go onto the vise for the moment. Need to turn that one round. Yeah, earth can go onto that one there. And if I use my pink screwdriver and bridge, can you guys see? I'm going to bridge the power in, the main power in, with the solenoid power in, which should spin the motor. Keep your fingers crossed, guys. See, that would blow up. There we go. I'll try and bring you guys round so you can see the Bendix gear working. It's just in there. Now I've zoomed in on the camera. I don't know if this is going to come out, but you should see it fly out. You should see it fly out about here. Let's see what we got. I won't keep it on too long because the wires get hot. Here we go. Hope you can all see that. As soon as you let the power off, it retracts as it's supposed to. Yeah, so that's it. That more or less concludes it. We've stripped it. We've checked all the bearings. We've done everything we can. We've checked the helical gears, the sun, planet, moon gears. I think that's what you call them. But the planetary gears that give it that extra torque, so that it saves just putting a bigger motor in there effectively, so it allows a smaller motor to give more torque to turn the engine over. We did have a little bit of a problem with putting it all back together when it comes to the lining up of the brushes, but you see the little trick there with the socket. That's very useful, because getting all those brushes in without something like that to support them is a nightmare. It's just more or less impossible. You wouldn't get it on top of the commutator. We've gone through the solenoid. We checked that. We didn't check it when it was out of the motor. For some reason I couldn't get that to work. I think it all needs to come together before you can actually check the electromagnet, as it were, to throw that shaft. We've seen the way it throws the Bendix gear out. It spins up okay. So really that concludes it. So I hope it helps some of you guys. The last video I'd done to do with the Ducato was changing the blower fan, and that was quite a few years ago now. And that was done, funny enough, around about this time of year, really cold, crawling underneath the seat to get upside down to see where the fan located. If you haven't seen that, do go back and have a look. There's been about 28,000 hits on that, so I was quite pleased. I was surprised as well, actually. But this is the starter motor for a Ducato 2.3 panel van. This is the uprated one, actually, because I spoke to, as I said, I mentioned their names, Nick and Martin at Coastal Motorhomes, and we decided to go for this one because it's got a bit more punch. The other one I think is 1.75 kilowatt. This is 2.5, which is quite a good kick. But obviously you need the battery to power it. But providing you get a 100 amp battery, go by what Fiat says where that's concerned. Get the biggest battery that they say or is allowed, and you should be fine. So that's me, Gary, Gary's Practical Workshop, signing out. I'll be back later. Bye for now.